Elisa, I'm so excited to have you here. This is going to be so fun. We spoke, was this last week already? We spoke about, okay. So, Elisa has been in my world as a client for almost a year. We're coming very close on a year now. And she has had some, from my point of view, beautiful, amazing, wonderful growth in her business. She came in with really clear goals into coaching club and has just, through my eyes, like blown things out of the water. Like I see, like I feel like every day I'm looking at your stories on Instagram and you're welcoming like a new person into your program. And that is so, so, so fun for me to watch. And so I wanted to have a talk with you to talk a little bit about your year and to share with my audience or anyone who watches this, like what your year has looked like, what growth actually required of you. Just get an insight into kind of like how you made it happen and how the work that we did together influenced that growth. So, Elisa, in my mind, is such a perfect example of a creative business owner who is doing it her way, who is finding her own path, who is forging her own, like her, how do I say this? Like her own path towards her own clear vision. And that is what I'm all about. It's what I want everyone who follows me to be all about, because I am so against just doing what other people say because that's what works or that's what will get you the results that you want. Because in the end, I know that you don't end up with the business that you want. You don't like the way that you do it. And so I think that you are a beautiful, beautiful example of someone that has a pretty clear vision. Your vision is coming into more and more clarity as you grow, but you're figuring out the steps on your own to get there. So I know that sounds maybe confusing for some people that are listening because they're like, wait, you're a coach, you're supposed to tell her how to do it. And that's sort of right, sort of wrong. So Elisa, I want you to introduce yourself, your business, The Scrappy Wife, what you do, what you're all about, and then we'll dive into some questions.
All right. I'm Elisa, and people know me as The Scrappy Wife. That is a YouTube channel that I have that I've been running for coming up on 4 years. And so it was a channel that started out as a hobby. And then I learned that you could start making money from it. And it was just a little kind of a side hustle, something I did when kids were sleeping and things like that. And probably in the last 2 years, I've kind of expanded that out. And so I really figured out that I have a passion for all things creative, all things like crafty and fun. And what I discovered was that I have a passion for those things, but I also have a passion for teaching. And it's something I probably should have realized earlier because I was a teacher and I've been a teacher in a lot of different avenues. But teaching was like teaching creative things and inspiring people. That is what like really lit me up and got me excited. And so that's what I do over on my channel. I share all kinds of tutorials and just organization things and just kind of a little like corner of the world where you get to be your like quirky creative self. That's what my channel is. And in like conjunction with that channel, I also have a Patreon community that is just like blown my socks off in the past year. It's just an amazing group of people. And so that's what I do. And it's a lot of fun. That's what my business is. And it's been a pretty remarkable year from my point of view as well, for sure.
Awesome. I'm so excited to hear more about from your point of view. So, but before this is total curiosity, but did you start your YouTube channel just like to have something fun to do? Or did you have in the back of your mind, like maybe this will be something?
So I had started a blog and had just done that just for fun and had seen other people. And I was like, I think that would be fun. It was nice to have an outlet as like a new mom feeling a little bit lost in like kid stuff, to have something that was like me, like a piece of me that was just separate. So I like that. And then if I'm like being completely honest, I think I started my YouTube channel thinking maybe I can make enough money to offset my craft budget, which at the time was like $50. I'm like, maybe I can bring in like $50 or $60 a month, and because I'm still staying home with kids, and then that will like give me money to buy craft supplies. That's kind of how it started. And then it was like, oh, but you can do more than that. Like it was just,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like, it wasn't this, it was like a slow grow. And then I was like, I could do this, and maybe I could do this instead of going back to work as a full-time teacher. And after like when we hit COVID, and it was like, I was very thankful for the flexibility of my job throughout COVID, because the kids were home, and it was nice that I could work in the mornings or at night, just that I had the flexibility. Then I was really like, okay, this is what I want to do, because I appreciate the freedom that being my own boss is. I still love teaching, but I can do it in a different way than I have done before.
Yes. Yeah. Thinking about going back to a job where I don't have the same freedom at this point in my life. Like, it feels like a straitjacket. Like, it feels like I can't breathe.
I don't know how my family, I don't know how we would do it. Like, I don't know how that would be. It's just really nice. And it gets complicated. Like, it is complicated if like,
yeah,
my husband does not have a regular schedule either. And so it is like juggling sometimes, but I appreciate the flexibility that we do have. Like it's really
totally. Great. Okay. So I want to like stay on this path for a second, and then we'll direct back to my questions. So you were like, originally you're like, maybe I can make $50 to cover my craft supplies. Then you started to see like, oh, maybe I could make more than that. What question do I want to ask about this? Because it's like, this is so fun for me to look at this difference. What are your thoughts now, based on where you are now, about $50 a month income?
I mean, it just makes me smile. Like, and it's crazy. I think, it was back in February, I sent you like a message like on Instagram, because we were coming home from like a family thing, and my husband and I had spent like the 2-hour drive home from Great Wolf Lodge just talking through the business. And it's crazy because some of the dreams I was having at that point, I feel like I would not have even like dared to dream, like that sounds like a cliche, like I didn't dare to dream, but talking about like, hey, what if my business eventually supports our whole family? Like, what if you, like talking to my husband, I'm like, what if you retire and then I hire you to work for me, like work in like a family business, because that's now the like trajectory that I can see. Like I can like see that vision now. And
yes, that's like that's what I was gonna say. Like, does that feel that far-fetched to you? Because it doesn't seem that far-fetched to me.
It doesn't, and it's exciting, and it like ties back into that freedom, because my husband is in the military, and we don't move around just because of his job, but there will be an endpoint to his career, and it will be like earlier than a lot of people's careers, and so he'll have a whole opportunity for a second job. And we're talking about how amazing it would be if he worked in this business as well, and the freedom that would afford us at a younger age than we anticipated, because there will always be flexibility. And so there will be opportunities to travel, and there will be opportunities to do different things, especially if he's working within the same, like within my business. So it does seem a lot closer than I would have anticipated.
I love that. I love that so much. Okay. So and just quickly, I want to note, like, some people are people where like they have a super strong vision for their life and their business, and it's been like something they've carried with them for a really long time. Then there are some people where they kind of have this spark of interest and a little vision for what that could be, and that vision like unfolds and blossoms as they grow over time. And that sounds more like that's what yours has been.
Mhm.
Do you think that the bigger vision that you're working towards is something that was maybe always there, but you were afraid to like claim it? Or do you think it was like not there at all?
I think I think I was probably afraid to claim it. So, in some ways, I feel like it was, I don't know, I get nervous about failure. And so like putting it out there and saying like this is something I want makes me nervous because I'm like, what if it doesn't work out? And I feel
Mhm.
like that's probably, I mean, that's one of the things like that we've worked on is the fact that like, hey, you can say it, and hey, what if it doesn't work out in within a time frame, or it doesn't mean it's not ever going to work out. Like just because you put out the goal and set the goal it within a time, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen, and you can still mark your progress towards that goal. Like it's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay to not always make the goal something that you will easily, like I'm someone that likes to check things off of a to-do list. I'm like, oh my goodness, please give me my list. Tell me what to do. Check things off, check things off. And it's okay to put things out there and be like, well, I'm not going to check that off this month or this year, but I can see the progress and I can see it going in that direction.
Yeah.
And so I think it was there. I think the idea of being an entrepreneur was always kind of there because I grew up with some entrepreneurial, I can't say that word very well, but parents that owned businesses. And so it seemed like a good idea, but it's scary. Like it's scary.
Yeah.
Start
Yeah.
for sure.
Totally. Okay. So I want you to give me a snapshot. Take me back to like right before you joined coaching club. I want to know, like, from your point of view, what did what was going on in your business? How did you feel about your business? What were the results that you were getting? Like, give me just a snapshot of where you were a year ago from your point of view, from what you recall
Yeah.
to the
I
best of your ability.
no, it's been a long year. I had just started my Patreon community in January. So I was like 3.5 months in, I think, when we first talked. And I had a feeling that that was going to be an avenue I wanted to follow. But I had been building a business that had a lot of different revenue streams, like a lot of little revenue streams. And I remember like the main reason I feel like I reached out was I didn't know, I was trying to grow them all at once and they weren't really getting very far. Like I was trying to grow YouTube and I was trying to grow affiliate income and I was trying to prepare these online classes that were on a whole other separate thing. And I was putting tons of energy into lots of different avenues and just feeling like stuck, that I had seen growth, like I had seen a little bit of success, which is what led me to think maybe I can do this as my job instead of going back to teach. But it felt a little just stunted, I guess. And I was like, I don't know that I can work any harder. And I don't know that it would make a difference. Like that's what I was feeling at the time. So I remember when we first talked and telling you, like, I just don't understand where my energy should go. I don't understand how to make this grow. And it was probably one of the most helpful things is just like setting up a plan and trying to figure out where to put that energy. Because it was reassuring that you were like, no, you don't need to work. It doesn't need to be a lot harder. It shouldn't feel so hard that you can't do it because that's not sustainable. And
Yes.
that's probably, for my personality, that was reassuring to hear because I'm someone that wants to work really hard, but would have a tendency to just run myself into a wall and then be done and give up, like, and be like, well, I can't do
Yep.
it. Can't work any
Yeah.
harder. Like, and maxed out. And you were like, no, your work, like, it's not a lack of work ethic or like you're not, we're going to determine where you're going to start putting energy and how that's going to flow and kind of map out how that will then return to you through whatever avenue it was going to.
Yeah, totally. So I'm really curious, before we had that conversation and I showed that to you and you put trust in me with that, what did you think Well, did you think there was a quote problem as to why you weren't growing?
I
Or
thought
what did you think?
it was, I think the shift for me was I thought I needed to continue to get a larger and larger audience, because in my field of content creation, I was like, well, I need more YouTube followers. I need more Instagram. I just need a bigger pool of people to choose from. Like that was like, you talk about like finding your own way, but I was looking around like, that's what everyone else is doing. They're like chasing numbers. Like, I just need more I need more eyeballs on my stuff, and that will solve the problem. And it didn't feel like it was solving anything. And so that was like one of our first big lessons, probably within the first month, is you were like, you have enough, like, you have enough people and they're interested. You need to focus on the people that are there. How are you going to direct them to come in closer, to come in more into your business? She's like, you already, you've said you already have the people. You don't have to have thousands and thousands and thousands of followers on all the things.
Well, and you did have thousands and thousands of followers. Like, you came to me with a giant audience, in my point of view, like from my perspective, what felt like a giant audience compared to a lot of my other clients, which is why then I was like, no, that's not the issue.
Yeah. And it was a big shift in my head, because I was just trying to get more and more audience. And I did like it. I did. And I do have a big audience. But then it was like, but are you talking to those people? Like, or are you just, bringing them in and then looking past? I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Those people are interested in hearing, and they're coming back week to week and seeing things. Like, they're the ones to invite, because they're the ones that are here and showing up. And then more people will just come, because that's what happens. But I remember that being a big shift. I'm like, oh yeah, I already have a lot of people here that would like to hear more, that want to know more about me, more about what I have to offer.
Yeah. Okay, give me a snapshot of, like, mentally how you would just like what was going on in your head at that point in time, in terms of like how you felt about yourself and how you felt about your business.
I think, well, at that point, I was a little bit, I'll just say, a little bit doubtful that I had something valuable to offer. So I was thinking, I think when I started with you, like, I had a good audience, like you said, like at that point, probably 40,000 plus YouTube followers, which is like, whoa, that's amazing. But I still had this like imposter syndrome. I'm like, why are they watching? They're going to figure out that I'm terrible. Like, they're going to figure it's all like
one of these times that they come back.
Yeah,
the avid watchers, there's going to be that one video that turns them off. But yeah, that's true. That's how it feels. Yeah,
that's how it feels. And I was like, I felt like I was a little bit, I just wasn't feeling really confident in what I had to offer people. And I definitely felt that way somewhat on YouTube, but I was like, but they get it for free, so it's fine. But then when I was starting my Patreon and people started paying into this program, then I really was like, what if I'm not providing value? What if I'm not doing it right? What if I'm not serving this community in the right way? And so there was a lot of doubt around that. And I think I probably used the term so many times in the last few months of like, I felt like I was like having to trick people into, I'm like, please come, like begging them to come, and not really feeling confident with what I was offering. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the biggest shifts that probably happened like in the summer, really focusing and doing like the heart work of like, no, what am I offering and why is it of value? And taking the time to look around at the feedback that I was already getting and ignoring. Like, I was already getting feedback that I was offering something of value, and that the things that were happening, people appreciated. And I had the tendency to look at anything of anyone leaving page, like any tiny negative would blow up, and ignoring the positives. And so that took a lot of work to really hone in and be like, no, actually, I feel good with what I'm doing, what I'm offering. I feel confident. I don't feel threatened when people leave, because I know they're, people leave. That just happens. Like, people come and go into all kinds of communities, and that's totally normal. But at the beginning, I think I was so sensitive to every little thing, and it felt like a roller coaster, like all of the time. So just getting super happy when someone would join, and then feeling like completely like, slashed when someone would leave, and I would ride this roller coaster, and it was exhausting. It was really exhausting.
Exhausting, completely exhausting. I know from personal experience how exhausting that is. So I think that's a really good point to now compare how much of that feels steady now instead of roller coastery.
It feels so different. So in my business, the very end of the month and the very beginning of the month tends to be like a volatile time where people are like shifting where their money is going. But I can't believe I just passed that like a week ago, and it was almost like I didn't notice it. And it was just like,
oh my gosh, that's amazing.
It was crazy because there's been multiple times where I've come on like bracing myself, and I'll come to coaching club. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the 30th and this is the next 2 days. It's going to be so hard. And it just wasn't. And I had people come and I had people go, and it was just like, all right, well now this is the group of people we're working with this month. And it was this different feeling of just feeling much steadier, and it's great. So I generally don't get my feelings hurt now when people leave, and I still get super excited when people come. Like, it's still very exciting to have new people join, and to get to welcome them and to see them start to like flourish in this little community. So, but I feel like it's
so much,
still more even.
So I'm really curious for you. The reason that means so much to me to hear is I know, at least for me personally, and I think for most of my clients, when the emotions are really all over the place in your business, it's practically impossible. Well, not only does that feel like crap, and it's really exhausting, and it drains a lot of energy, which could be going into actually productive, like doing things in your business. But I also know that it's really hard to separate and to not take that into other parts of your life, like as a mom, as a partner, even just like running adulthood, like doing
Totally.
the shit you got to do. So I'm really curious, like previously, were you feeling like that roller coaster of emotions was affecting other parts of your life?
For sure. Like it would be really hard for the kids to come home, and for me to be like, I would be all wrapped up in like this work thing or something that had happened. And that's a little bit of my personality. Like I left a job before because I was so passionately involved in it that I couldn't separate things. Like I just and it was kind of the same thing. And I ended up leaving that job just because it was too much. And so I feel like if I hadn't been able to even out like the ride of owning your own business, then that just wouldn't have been conducive to my life. It's that mental space that it ends up taking up, and then you don't have the mental space for your spouse or for your kids, or, you go to soccer practice and you like gripe at other parents when they have no idea. So freeing up that mental space is a big deal. Like it makes a big difference in the rest of your life. So
yeah, I think so too. I think it just affects so much. Mm-hmm. Okay, so talk to me about, and you can share whatever you feel comfortable sharing, if you want to share like numbers within your community or not is totally cool with me. But talk to me about the growth, the actual tangible, like let's mark it on a sheet growth that you've had, because it's been huge, at least from
it's been
how I define huge.
It's been really good. And what I love is that I was really scared when we started of shifting my focus towards Patreon and away from YouTube numbers. Not that I wasn't doing YouTube, but I came the first couple of months to you with YouTube numbers, and then you would be like, wait, is that in your goal? That has nothing to do with the goals you set. And I was like, oh, I guess we're not like, okay, you're right. And so I was nervous that I wasn't like heavily focused on those numbers, but the Patreon numbers, I have I'm getting really close to quadrupling the number of patrons I've had in a year. So I was somewhere in the 40s ish, I think, when we started, and now I'm very close to 160, which is crazy.
That's awesome.
Crazy and amazing. And it feels like there's just been some little like goals along the way that have felt big, and passing 150 felt really big for me for a long time. And so like, I feel good that I'm past that number and past it enough that I will stay past that number. So it's like, that part has quadrupled. And then the interesting thing for me has been, I still have lots of different revenue sources, like income sources with what my business is. And I spent probably the first 6 months, I guess, of our time together focusing on Patreon. And that was where my goals, and that's still where most of my goals are oriented, but everything else has kind of come up as well, even with the focusing on the one specific source. And so I shared last week that it's just the beginning of the second quarter, and I'm already looking at my annual goal for 2023, and I'm going to meet it. Like, I'm going to meet it way earlier than anticipated. And so it's like, well, I guess I should set a new goal. Like it doesn't feel far-fetched. It feels like, oh, well, I need to relook at that, because that will happen, much earlier than anticipated. So.
Okay. I have 2 questions about this. So you were expecting to reach that goal by the end of the year, was like your original. Okay.
Yeah. The markers, like I set an overall income goal, a revenue goal for 2023. And then within that goal, I set the markers I would need to hit in order to meet that. Like, this is the number of patrons I need. This is how much I need from this source and this source. But those markers, I will think I will hit by the summer. Like, I will already be at those
within the first half of the year, basically.
Right. That will end up giving me that total revenue goal. So if I continue that growth, that revenue goal is going to be, I'm going to laugh at it by the end of the year and be like, that's funny that I thought that should be my goal.
That is so amazing. So amazing. So I want to know, what do you think was the biggest contributor to, how do I want to phrase this, to that shift? Like, so first of all, because I've seen a lot of really powerful internal shifts in you the past 3-4 months. And when I actually very clearly remember when we did the 2023 planning workshop, which would have been December, we probably did early December. I remember that part of that work is we do an emotional check-in, like, how does the goal make you feel? I remember you really specifically being like scared of the goal. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really curious. You're obviously not scared of that goal anymore. It's only been like 3-4 months since then. Why do you think that? Obviously part of it is that you're saying like, well, look, I can see the numbers. I'm not scared of it. I know it's happening, but I want to know more specifically, like, do you feel really confident now in like just the work that has to be done to reach those goals? Whereas before maybe you didn't?
I do. I feel really confident, and I feel really confident in the work that has to be done. And then I just feel more confident in that. I think for me in January, beginning of February, I did a lot of the check-ins on thinking like, what I do is worth paying for. That was like conquering that statement, and then really like feeling secure in that. Mm-hmm. Just, it made everything feel so much easier. Like, I feel like I came up and we worked on a good formula. Like, I'm feeling like June-ish was when like this huge light bulb went off, and we talked a lot about like clear strategies. And I was like, oh, And it was like this big light bulb. And so I started like working on that formula the rest of 2022 and kind of getting it and like going back and forth in coaching club and being like, okay, this works. And this, so it started to like really refine to where it's like, okay, I get what people need to hear as far as the information they need from me to make a choice on what they're going to do. Like that started really solidifying, and then doing the heart work part of it and being like, and I feel good with what I'm offering. And so I present it in a different way. I don't feel like I have to do this huge sales pitch. I feel like I can authentically like show up and offer what I have to offer and feel really confident about that. So I feel like I show up in a different energy than like begging, like, please, please, please join, please do this, you know. And it's more of a like, hey, this is what's happening. And I'm so excited about it. And I would love for all of you guys to come and join too, because you're going to have fun. Like, I just know you will. And it feels like a different energy. And so I feel like that is what made it easier, is operating from, instead of this like desperate, like, please join, I'm scared no one will join, I'm scared no one will want to buy into this. And now it feels different. And so it's easier to do.
Yeah. So do you think that your actions have actually changed, or is it the way that you're doing the actions?
I think it's the way I'm doing the actions. I think it's
Yeah.
a lot of similar. Some of the things are very similar, like sending out emails or doing certain things that I would do on a regular basis before, and that maybe I've been doing since before I met you, but it's the tone and the way it's going out there that feels different on my end. And I feel like if it feels different on my end, it must feel different for the other end, like for those that are receiving that correspondence.
That's what I was going to say. So it feels easier for you. It feels more natural for you. That's something that's really important to you, is for you to feel authentic when you show up. And I think that's true of everybody in my audience. Like, I would almost say that in terms of values, that might land at like the very top for most of my people. Is it's very hard and takes a lot of energy for creative people who have a really I'll say a strong sense of self, even though I think that we tend to question it more than others, but a strong sense of self in that like unwillingness almost to be like fake out in the world. Like, that is not worth it. Right. So it feels easier for you. So then it's easier to do it naturally. Do your numbers. So your numbers, I believe, are a reflection of if that's landing or not, like for people. Like, if it's quote working from a business sense, if we're looking at that through as a strategy, even though I don't even like to call that strategy, because it's like being yourself and having like a really healthy belief system around selling and your business is basically what it is, right? So, but if we were talking about that as like a strategy for sales, do your numbers reflect that to be true? That is working? Like, is that when you saw your numbers start to go up more?
Yes. I mean, if I'm being told, my numbers have gone up very steadily the whole time we've been working together. Like, it wasn't necessarily, I maybe had a couple of spikes in there, but it has been very steady for the most part. However, at the very end of 2022, like November, December, it felt like it had plateaued a little bit. And then showing up in 2023, having done the work and figured out the process, and then really focusing on the energy in 2023, I think is when it really came together. And so I've seen it in the growth as in new numbers coming in for my particular program. I've also seen it with less people leaving. Like, it's so usually I have some turnover, and now I feel like less people are leaving because they really understand when they're joining what they're getting and who they're getting. And so I'm like, they understand. And I feel really confident in showing up in that space and serving them. Like, it's hit a good balance. And so people still leave for whatever reason, but I know that it's less when I look at that part of my numbers. So yes, I still have new patrons every month, but I have less leaving. And so then it really helps the number go up, the overall.
Yeah. Okay. I have one last question before we wrap up with the sort of final questions. You said you've like almost or more than somewhere around quadrupled your Patreon numbers of patrons. When you came to me and were interested in joining Coaching Club, you came in with a really clear goal. Some people come in with clear goals, some people don't. You came in with a really clear goal that was like, I want to replace my teaching salary, like previous teaching salary. Was that as a general, all the revenue in your business or just from Patreon? Do you remember?
That was going to be all the revenue in my business.
All the revenue. Has that happened this year?
Yes. Yeah. That happened, I think, by the end of 2022. And then now it's getting, I mean, maybe in the next 3 or 4 months, it will be just from Patreon. So
you'll have just from Patreon, you'll have replaced that.
Will be, if it continues in the way it's continuing, which I don't have any reason to believe it won't, as long, as like on all of the same processes. And no, I would imagine that by the end of 2023, when you add in all of the different income sources, that I will certainly exceed what I earned as a full-time teacher, which is just like amazing.
That's so awesome.
It is. It's really awesome. I'll exceed that with still the flexibility that I would not have had otherwise. So,
and you get to like create what your job looks like. You don't have other people telling you like how you have to show up and what you have to do.
Exactly.
Which is a different level of freedom and flexibility in a whole different way that I think for quality of life and peace of mind and all of that is such a big factor in terms of feeling fulfilled and all of that. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I have 2 last questions. My first question is, so there are a lot of creatives who really have a DIY mindset. I think that you obviously, like, part of you has a massive DIY mindset. It's like, that's kind of like what your business is built on, right? So why is it that, what was the difference with regarding business where you were like, I'm not going to DIY this, I'm going to get a coach or I'm going to get help? A lot of people tend to be like, I can do this on my own. And I'm not discrediting that. I think that that's true to some extent. What was it that was like, no, this isn't something I'm going to do on my own?
I wanted something that was more specialized to who I am and what my business was. So I definitely, for the first few years, was like, I can do this on my own. I can look up anything I want to on YouTube. I can find out all, like, sure, all the information is out there online. Like, you can find out all kinds of information. But I wanted to be able to talk to someone about my business, because my business wasn't going to look like anyone else's business. It was my business, and someone that would take the time to get to know me personally and my personality, which I feel like you've done, and help me navigate those 2 things. Like how does my personality fit in the business world? Because my personality doesn't fit in the same way that the other people in Coaching Club. Like, everyone has they're coming at it from a different angle. And I feel like having a coach that takes the time to know that, I think differently than this person. And even though we might be working towards the same goal, it might take a different strategy for us to get there, just because we're wired in a certain way. And so it didn't feel like a one size fits all was going to work. So that I wanted the like individualized, even though it's in the group, like I learn everything from the group, but it still feels individualized, because I feel like you're getting to know each and every one of us. And and for me, the big impetus was feeling like I was stuck, like I had maxed out efforts in that I wasn't seeing growth, or I just wasn't seeing it anymore. And so I feel stuck. I don't know what to do. I can go online and read about how to get more followers or how to but it doesn't feel like it's applicable to my business necessarily.
Yeah. So you had like basically in terms of like next steps or like how to get to the next level of growth, you kind of had like a big question mark. It was just like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it was completely. So it was, I don't know. And then like, I don't know how to do it. And I don't know if I can do it. Like that was like, I don't know either of those things. Like, have I maxed out? Is this it? That's, almost how I felt last
The
spring.
answer to that question for anybody watching is always, no, you have not maxed out. Yes, you can do it. Always. Like there is never, ever, ever not a path to your goal. I believe that so strongly to my core. And everybody that I work with continues to be proven evidence and examples of that to be true. Like no matter how much people are like, either I can't do it or it's like not possible for me, or maybe whatever, like all these reasons. It's like, no, that's actually not the case. Not the case at all.
Yep.
Okay. So I have two last questions. Then we will wrap up and you can let people know where to find you and all the loveliness and that. So, what do you think is, if you had to pick just one, what do you think is the most valuable aspect of Coaching Club or the work that we've done together?
I was actually thinking of this earlier today because I was like, I bet she's gonna ask me what those. It's like, I think of all the things we do, I actually think it's the reflection piece at the end of the month. So there's a lot of goal setting and a lot of like working through like your action items and the heart behind your goal. And that all helps me at the beginning of the month, but taking the time at the end of the month to reflect on how that goal went, what contributed to its success, or if you didn't feel like it was successful, what progress, like just going through the whole process of looking and reflecting. That's not something I was great at before. And so I feel like for me in particular, that's been very helpful because I can set goals and I can work towards them, but reflecting and figuring out why or why not. Like if a goal just worked, I'm like, well, I guess it just happens. Like, I guess it just worked and that just happens. And you have a stop and go, wait, it didn't just happen. You did something to make that goal happen. So we would stop. And I feel like for me, that's where I really honed in on my whole process and how I set up. That helped me then start setting up goals differently. Cause I was like, oh, wait, this did work. This particular thing was different. And then I saw a difference in this. And that reflection piece, I think, was huge. So, and then a really close second is hearing everybody else in the group is a big part that I wasn't sure I was going to like the group aspect. I wasn't sure I was going to like it, but now I very much enjoy hearing all these different business owners at different points in their journey and how, even if they're in a totally different field, something they're going through is very like relatable to something I'm going through. And that has been just really helpful, just knowing that you're not, alone. Like there's other people doing it with you,
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. There's also, there's kind of this unconscious thing that happens when you're in a group with watching other people that you can relate to on some level growing and succeeding. And there's this unconscious thing that's going on in your brain, at least from my perspective, that's like, oh, like if it's possible for her, it's possible for me. Because everyone has, like common ground, really relatable. Like a number of us are moms, a number of us have the same sort of businesses. Like we can look out into the like business success world so often, especially as like creative people, and go, well, there's not a whole lot of examples that feel relatable to me of people growing and building what I want to create and build. And then it's really easy when things don't go perfectly right to be like, I guess it's not meant to be, or I guess this isn't going to happen. And when you're in a group with other people that are growing and thriving, and it's not growing and thriving 100% of the time. Let's be honest. Like sometimes it doesn't feel that way, but when you look at the reflection of the growth that they've had and their growth that you've had, it's very hard to ignore, like, oh, this is happening. And this is happening for me, not just for everyone else.
Yeah. And it's funny because you can see, like, you're right, not every month is a growth. Like, you don't hit the goals every month. But it's cool to see others, they'll be frustrated and you're like, but wait, I saw this for the past like 8 months. Like, you might be frustrated now, but the reminder to like look back though, look how far you come, and you can see it with the other people. And then that reminds you to be like, oh wait, me too. Like, I also did not hit my goal this month, but let's take a second and look at how far I've come. And you can't have like it, the odds of the constant growth are so small, but the reminder to look back and be like, wait, I've come so far and there's still so much ahead of me to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that your point on the reflection being like super valuable for you, because I think for a lot of people, when they have had success of any sort, it's really easy for us just to go, oh, that was a fluke. Like, that wasn't me, or that was some random luck, or I don't know, maybe I did play a role in it, but I don't really know how. And it's really about looking at the deeper patterns.
Mhm.
And we're not taught to do that in the way that I teach it. We are not taught to do that. But that's where the magic is. Like, I interviewed Haley, I think it was last week, and she's like, like, I came in not knowing like my recipe, and she's like, my recipe is dialed. And I feel really same for you. It's like, nailed it. But had you not looked deeper at the patterns in like reflecting, would you think that you would have ever seen it?
No. And it was like it was like tweaking the recipe and being like, wow, it was super successful. I'm going to try to do that this month. And then something would be a little bit different. I'd be like, how come I remember like, well, I didn't have the same growth. I did the same things. And then we would like sit and look and reflect and like, oh, well, you didn't do the same things. You did this a little bit. And it was like, oh, it just like this all the time.
Yeah.
So I learned from successes and from not failures, but just times that I didn't quite meet what I was intending to do. Like, I learned on both ends instead of just the like pass fail thing, like, check, I did the goal, I didn't do the goal. And so I feel like that is what really helped me hone it, and it's still happening. Like, I have a good recipe, and I even discovered stuff in the past month that I was like, oh, I tried this and this was cool. Like, people got excited about this. And I also got like, okay, well, now I'm going to try that again and see how it works and see how it builds. So
yeah.
Cool.
And the fun thing for you too, in terms of like your business model and how you sell, is like, you can have like I think about it like, you could get really good at having like your unique recipe for baking like a loaf of bread, right? And that's like your core recipe. But then you can take that and you can be like, I'm going to do a spin on it and do like, put cranberries and walnuts in it. Or I'm going to do a spin on it and put like cinnamon and sugar, or, like, I'm going to turn it in, I'm going to do a different shape bread loaf. It's like, once you nail your recipe, you can then start to have fun with it and play with it. And there's still this level of like confidence and like sufficiency and security that it's like, no, this is my thing and this works.
Yeah. Instead of just feeling like it's luck. That's a big thing. And
I love when recently people have come into the group and had said things like, well, I don't know how I've had sales in the past, or I don't know how I created that number. Right. And I love how you always chime in and you're like, oh, this was you. And this was the first lesson I learned in Coaching Club.
And like, hello, like, my job was on social media. So it felt like, well, but I just had a video go viral. I don't know why it went viral. It just did. Like, it just did.
Yeah.
That's why I have, like, I don't know why I have this many, like, I just do. And being like, wait, no, there's a reason people are there, and you can figure out that reason. And it might like take a little bit to figure it out and unwrap it, but it's really helpful when you know.
Yeah. Makes it a whole lot easier.
Yeah. Like, hello, like, I was able to figure out the reason and in quadruple the number of people that were coming in. So that's a big deal.
And now your top tiers are maxed out. Like, you're,
Again,
it's worth it to find the patterns.
Totally. Totally. I don't know if I
Okay.
told you, wait, at the end of last month, my top tiers were maxed out and I opened them up for a weekend. I just added more spots just to see what would happen. And they
Yeah.
maxed out again.
Seriously?
And I didn't like advertise it at all. I just like, I put it there, I added it and I sent out one email about it. I was like, I just want to see what would happen. Just like, I'll just inch it up. And then they maxed out again. And I was like, okay, well, that's good to know. Like, that's like good information to have.
This is like me being like, anybody who is watching is like, you are in control of your results. And when you nail it, like, this is why people talk about build your business as the machine that drives the results. And because once you and I think that you are part of that machine. Like, I believe that as the creator and as the CEO, you are part of that machine. So you kind of also have to build yourself. That's what part of what the recipe is. But it's like, once you've done that, that becomes your new normal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it becomes your new normal. You just open up spots and the demand is there.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I love that so much. Okay, so if you had to give one piece of advice to someone that is like in the position that you were in a year ago of being like stuck, having goals, not reaching them, not sure what to do you have like one piece of advice? Obviously there's probably a million, but what's the one thing that you would say to that person?
I would say I would say to keep going. Like, I feel like it's super easy to give up and be like, it's too hard, I can't do it. So keep going and then find that source for you. Like, find the inspiration, the individual inspiration that you need. And it's not a one size fits all. And I think that's probably why I benefited the most from coaching, like from having that, because I could listen to podcasts like about entrepreneurship and I would like get excited but it felt like a one size fits all kind of solution. And so for me, like having that individualized time and someone that would take a look at my business and what I wanted it to be and how I wanted to grow, and not just tell me, okay, but it should grow this way. Like taking the time to be like, but helping me formulate my plan for where I wanted to see it go, instead of just, taking a like overall look at me like, you should just focus on this. Like that helped me a lot. And I think it helped equip me to continue doing that for myself going forwards. Like I feel much more equipped as a business owner, like infinitely more than I did at this point last year, where I felt like I was just flying by the seat of my pants and trying to figure out things. And sometimes I do, like, that's part of owning your own business, is trying some things, but I feel much more well equipped to go forward and to grow my business than I saw last year. And it's made a big difference, rather than someone just saying, do these things. Like I was part of the conversation too. And I got to have the sounding board of coaching and coaching club to work through things. But because I got to be so involved in it, instead of someone just telling me you should do this, it helped me a lot.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I totally second that. And I appreciate you sharing that so much. Cause I think so many people can be like, well, I just need to go buy that course that teaches you how to blah, blah, blah. And it's like, once you're someone that's bought all the courses and you still aren't where you want to be and you don't have the business that you want to have and you're still confused, you learn that it's generally that you need to figure out your own strategy. And there's a process for that. There's a process for that.
And if you're creative, then your business probably isn't going to look like you're not opening up a chain restaurant. You know what I mean? Like it's different if you're opening up a Chick-fil-A, then there's already the formula for,
and they're going to hand you the what to do, what to say.
Build this building and do this thing like that. But if you're creative and you're creating something that might not have ever existed before, so not that
it definitely doesn't exist before,
right,
like in the way that you do it.
Right. And there's elements of mine that exist, but I feel like my business is unique. And I think a lot of people feel like that. And so it won't work for my strategies, like Patreon can't even tell me what to do. Like I'll watch some of those podcasts and helpful somewhat, but my community is not the same as every other creator on Patreon. So my formula and my recipe looks different than a musician on Patreon. Like it all will look a little bit different. And so getting someone that will take time to understand you and your vision is important.
Yeah. And the example of Chick-fil-A is such a great one, because I think that also serves on like when you can see like a cookie cutter example of a business that runs deep. Like it runs from like not only like the way that the store looks and the way that the menu is and the way that the employees speak, but that also goes deep into like what are their values as a company and what are the values of their customers and how do they make decisions at a deeper level. And there's like that goes deep, and you have to define all of that for yourself in your business. There's like a lot that goes into a lot of thoughtfulness and decision making that goes into creating a business that's all your own.
Mm-hmm.
And that can feel, I think, overwhelming and daunting for a lot of people. So
yeah, for sure.
Okay, awesome. So tell me, where's the best place for people to find you? If they want to follow you, be part of your community, reach out and be friends, whatever.
You can always find me on my website, which is scrappywife.com. You can find me on YouTube, The Scrappy Wife. I'll come up if you search on YouTube. And all my social media stuff is Scrappy Wife blog. So you can find me on Instagram mostly. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome.
Well, you can find me in all those places all the time.
I love it.
All the content.
Thank you so much for sharing a piece of your journey with us. And also thank you for allowing me to play the role that I have played in a minor way in your growth, because it's such a joy for me to watch. Honestly, like you are such like light in my life and in the group. And so I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
See ya.
Bye.